Hi, hello, and welcome back to the 1983 National Football League Draft.
And with the first round pick,
John Elway, Jim Kelly.
Welcome back to the
Draft.
And with the first round pick,
Dan Marino,
NFL Draft. And with the first round pick,
Deion Sanders.
I was kind of scared. I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would ask for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
Welcome back to the
NFL Draft.
Good young players with the transfer back.
Year in and year out.
welcome back to the
Draft.
Wide receivers, running back.
Tackle. Quarterback.
Every year in the draft.
There has been a trade. Ricky Williams.
On a shady Sunday.
welcome back to the
Draft. Defensive line.
Wide receiver, running back.
Tackle quarterback.
That's all I'll get into that.
Prime time looks like you're wearing your signing bonus.
No more sales.
welcome back to the
NFL Draft. And with the first round pick,
Eric Dickerson.
Reggie Bush.
welcome back to the
Draft.
And with the
Prime time.
pick, Keyshawn Johnson.
Are we ready?
And with the first round pick, Randy Moss.
I'm a pig now. I'm a Viking now.
And with the first round pick,
We're back in the booth, a special edition of the Draft Wrap Podcast. Your host, Luke Inman, on Twitter, at Luke_Spinman NFL, here with one of my favorite draft experts, the legend himself, Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter, at DP Brugler. Dane, pleasure to have you as always. First and foremost, now that the dust is settled, have you opened up some windows in the house? Have you gotten outside, taken a fresh shower? What's your mindset now before we jump in to the 2021 class already?
Well, it's, from one craziness to another, we're actually in the process of building a house here in Ohio. Thanks, Dad. It's one of the more stressful things I've ever been a part of. So jumping into one fire into another. So it's not much downtime just yet. A lot to do. But, it's in these times, I know a lot of people are much worse off. So certainly won't complain. It was a fun draft. And, now I get to jump into something else while still, prepping for next year. That'll start pretty soon. So definitely a lot going on.
Yeah, no doubt. In Ohio, I heard the host of the 2021 NFL draft as well. So that'll be in your backyard. We got to talk about the beast. Dane, I know you got some kids, but this is your baby. Incredible work. I know so many man hours go into it. It's so obvious when you read the detail. At what point do you start thinking about that 2021 NFL draft class?
Oh, I'm already there. I mean, you have to be to put out something like that. It's a year-round thing. It really is. And, I think that, look, it's the only way I know how to do this. Put it that way. I don't know how to scale it back because I think just in order to do this the right way, I think it does take a full year because I'm not a scouting department. I don't have, 20 people working for me. It's just me. And so in order to do it right, I think that, it takes 365 days out of the year. And, and even that doesn't feel like enough because there's always another player to watch. There's always someone else I can call. There's always, another tape to watch. So there's always more that you can do. So you always feel like, you try to knock out as much as you can. I wish there were 36 hours in a day instead of 24, but this is what we have to work with. So we'll make do.
It's so obvious once you start to dive into that thing, man, just how many man hours go into it, like I said. And if you haven't downloaded it already, jump on theathletic.com. It's free with your subscription. Check out your team's draft and get a deep dive analysis on each one of your picks. Certainly no better time to get that draft guide, the beast, as we like to call it. Some of the best work in the business. Let's jump into the draft. I know you don't like handing out draft grades, which is fair enough. But when you start to rank these teams 1 to 32, everyone and their mother has the Ravens as the best draft class. So we'll save our breath on them. A+ from me. I think most people would agree that Cowboys probably had one of the better draft classes as well, having CeeDee Lamb and Trevon Diggs fall in their lap. So let's jump to your third best front office. Who else had a really great draft weekend in your opinion?
Well, number 3 for me were the Browns, and it's mostly because of in the first round they got the best tackle in the draft, in my opinion. So, and that's the thing with draft grades, and what I do is I do a power rankings of my favorite draft classes 1 through 32. It's very self-serving because it just if a team drafts who we liked, then they're going to be ranked high. So, and trust me, I fully understand the little bit of a hypocrisy there, but as I still think it's interesting to look at it that way. And so For me, the Browns are number 3. Like I said, Jedrick Wills at number 1 in the first round. He was a top 5 player on my board. To get him number 10, I think they got the best tackle in the draft. And then they went SEC heavy in the first 2 days, and I think it's really going to pay off for them. They really needed that deep safety. Enter Grant Delpit in the second round. They really needed some more depth on the interior. Okay, Jordan Elliott, who is a top 50 talent, but he fell to 88 because of some baggage that comes with him. One of the only picks I didn't love, Jacob Phillips, a linebacker. We'll see what he can do on coverage snaps. That's my only hang up there. But on day 3, I thought they kicked it out of just Harrison Bryant in the 4th. Right. I mean, that's David Njoku. We'll see what happens there. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he's going to be in the long-term plans or not. Nick Harris, who's undersized, but talent-wise, smarts, technique, athleticism, it's all there. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's kind of the ideal end of the roster receiver because he's so gifted, but he just needs work. And so you want to groom him, and so to get him in the 6th, I really like what the Browns did.
For sure, one of the big winners. I personally like the Jets quite a bit. I think a lot of pressure comes down to Mekhi Becton and that front office, whether he pans or not. But the other team that I just dig every pick was John Elway and the Denver Broncos in that division with Pat Mahomes, now Justin Herbert, John Gruden, and the Raiders got a lot better. Best wide receiver class we've seen in a decade. What do? They double dip right away. I had Jerry Jeudy as my number 1 wideout, just safe, simple, don't overthink it. And then they come back with KJ Hamler, Lloyd Cushenberry, McTelvin Ingram, a 5-star recruit out of Arkansas, and then even Albert O. Just a lot of YOLO picks, as they like to call it. Did you like the Broncos as well and what they did?
Absolutely. They were in my top 10, and such a perfect compliment to Cortland Sutton with Jerry Jeudy there, his route running, his ability to uncover, and then KJ Hamler in the slot. You're going to use him on jet sweeps, line him up with the backfield, just manufacture touches for him and let his speed go to work. He'll help as a return man as well. Ojemudia in the 3rd. He was about a little bit higher than I had him. I had him more as an early 4th. But still understand it with you need corners, and sometimes you have to overdraft those guys if they're in limited supply. Cushenberry, who you mentioned in the 3rd, they bolstered their interior line. And then even in the 6th round to take a flyer on Muti, the guard out of Fresno State, who talent-wise, I think he's a top 50 pick. The durability is a major concern. I mean, you could not draft this guy in the first 5 rounds. You can't do it because the medicals are that bad. But once you get the 6th, the 7th, totally understand taking a flyer on a guy like that.
Yeah, I love those lotto picks, getting into day 3. High reward, low risk. Why not? Certainly 44 bench reps at the combine showed off his power. Just from like a fit and scheme perspective, was there one or two players that where they landed, you just love the fit? You think it makes a lot of sense? You think they have a great chance at coming in as a rookie and making an impact right away, like a Michael Pittman or a Brian Edwards for those teams in a pass-happy league?
Yeah, I mean, you took my answer, Michael Pittman. That's who I think every second round mock that I did, I had Michael Pittman going to the Colts just because I loved it so much. They've been looking. They have T.Y. Hilton. He's still the burner, can still stretch out the field. They needed that power forward on the outside, a guy that he's not a slug, but he has good speed. But what you like about him is the ball skills. He's so physical to the football in the air that he is going to out-rebound DBs. And, with Phillip Rivers now in the mix, he's not afraid to throw some of those 50-50 balls. And Michael Pittman's a guy that can go get it. So Michael Pittman is a player who's going to see the field early and often, and I think we could see some pretty impressive production from him. So I definitely like that pick. The Vikings, I thought with their 2 first-round picks, I really liked what they did with Justin Jefferson, Jeff Gladney. Jefferson, I don't think the Vikings, and I was actually talking to one of my Vikings guys, and he told me, he's like, we really didn't think Jefferson had any shot of falling past Philadelphia at 21. Wow. So, because the Vikings were making some calls. They were trying to get up into the teens. They were trying to get one of these receivers, and, they didn't work out. So they stay put at 22 and they get one of them. And then Gladney and later in the first round, who, I think it fits Mike Zimmer and the mentality that he wants his defense to play with. Jeff Gladney has that. He's a bulldog on the outside. He can play inside, physical, the ball production you love. So I loved what the Vikings did with those first 2 picks.
Let's stick with those DBs because Mike Zimmer had to hit the reset button. You saw how many big names they lost in the secondary, but he's got a few new toys. You mentioned Gladney, Harrison Hand from Temple, a couple safeties on day 3, Josh Metellus, Brian Cole. But I want to know about Cameron Dantzler because it seems like when you flip on the tape, this guy was covering some serious SEC talent. Jamar Chase, the Biletnikoff Award winner, and looked really good against guys like Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. What do you think is his ceiling under Mike Zimmer?
Yeah, I think he can be an outside corner who's going to be a solid starter. I don't necessarily think that he has Pro Bowl potential. Maybe he could even exceed my expectations and do that. But I see a guy who can line up outside and be a solid starter for you, someone that you can trust, someone that is going to give you a few picks. And this is a player who was a quarterback in high school, and so he didn't have much corner experience until he got to Mississippi State. And, they really worked on it. He was a 2-year starter. Double-digit passes defended the last 2 years. And, he's tall. Not necessarily long, but he's tall. And the one thing I do worry about is just the body armor. Like, he's not a guy that's going to carry much more than 190 pounds. And so you do worry about that in terms of play strength, matching up with physical receivers, matching up with blockers, holding up in the run game, things like that. But I like his speed, even though he did run a 4.64 at the combine. I don't think he doesn't run like a 4.64 athlete. I think he's quick enough. He's really fluid with his ability to transition without losing his balance. I really like that. So it's just a matter of, can he hold up and run support? And then he just needs to be more technically refined in terms of his footwork, his eyes, finding the football, not making too much contact before the ball arrives. So some of the things that you would expect from a guy who's basically played he basically had 2 seasons of starting experience at the corner position. So just raw in some areas, but you like the athleticism and you like what his ceiling could be.
Yeah, I think the Vikings made out with, again, some good value. Rick Spielman moved up and down, manipulated the board. But ultimately, I think for the Vikings, this draft class, for me, when you look back, dust is settled, is going to be all about Ezra Cleveland. Did he pan out at offensive line? Because that was the Vikings' biggest need heading into the offseason. And outside of adding Cleveland in the second round with pick 58, they did little to address that situation. Maybe a quick pro and con about Ezra Cleveland, what Vikings fans can look forward to, and maybe what they might have to worry about and Ezra's going to have to work on in the NFL.
Well, the biggest thing he needs to work on is just his anchor. More sand in his pants so he can drop that anchor and hold up against bull rushers. And he's not going to be a guy that, rushers can attack his chest, get him moving in reverse, put him on his heels. So the ability to answer power at the point of attack, that's where he needs to get better. We know he's a very good athlete. He's not the longest guy, but because he is so quick, you rarely see him beat around the corner. He needs to improve his play strength a little bit. And so that's the one, even though he did have 30 reps at the combine, answering power for power, that's something that he needs to get better at. But I love the athleticism, love the smarts, love the character. I think there's a lot to like about him from, the neck up in terms of the way he can recognize things and put himself in position to combat whatever rushers are throwing at him. So big fan of Ezra Cleveland. I thought there was a good chance the Vikings might have taken him in the first round. And if a certain scenario played out and the board fell to them a certain way, I think the Vikings would have been just fine drafting him at 31 or even maybe even 22 in the right situation. So I know they wanted that corner. They didn't necessarily know they were going to get that receiver in the first round until Jefferson fell to them. So I know Ezra Cleveland was someone they had high on their wish list.
Rick Spielman, what he does, man, with 4 trades, ends up with the most draft picks of any other team, 15 selections, and most importantly for me, sets himself up with 3 extra picks next season already. You've been doing this over a decade, Dane. Have you seen a GM manipulate that board quite like we've seen what Rick Spielman just continues to do draft after draft?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more experienced GMs when it comes to this, and it's something that, you go up and down the NFL, and different teams have different philosophies. You look at a team like the Saints, they believe more in quality necessarily than quantity. They're going to take, one really good player instead of 3 good players. And, it's just really interesting how, because I don't think there's a right or wrong here. It's just, the Saints have a certain philosophy, and it's not like the Saints are set up to be, that much better contenders than the Vikings are. I think they're kind of in a similar space. And so it's a really interesting contrast of philosophies when it comes to team building, adding talent. And, it's something that we just have to watch and see how it plays out. But no, there's no question. Spielman's at the top of the list. If you're going to list the GMs that are usually the ones that are most active, and usually the ones that and we're kind of worried about that with this draft process, with it being virtual. Would we have to worry about trades still happening and the frequency of these trades? And that's something with the communication that the Vikings have down in their front office. Obviously, that's something that didn't hinder them.
Of all those day 3 picks, I mean, you got about 3,000 to choose from. Was there one that kind of sticks out for you, knowing what they would like to do with Gary Kubiak on offense and what Mike Zimmer likes to do on defense?
One that is ironically is the final draft pick that really stood out to me. Kyle Hinton from Washburn. Tell you what, I watched this guy, watching his tape at Washburn, and he's an impressive athlete. And I did a full write-up in the draft guide on him, gave him a 7th round grade as a developmental center. And, he's a 3-year starter at left tackle, but he's smaller. He's 6'2", 295. Really, really good athlete. His pro day was ridiculous with the numbers that he put up. And so, he faces a jump in competition, obviously, going from D2 to the NFL, and he's going to have to change positions. So there's a projection here, no question. But at the athleticism that he brings, the smarts, his ability to roll his hips at contact, his ability to move laterally, play in space, the body control. There's just so much to like about Kyle Hinton as a developmental center. So eager to see what he can do. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Kenny Willekes in the 7th round. This is a guy who walk on at Michigan State, doesn't have the arm length. He's a 4'8", 4'9" type of athlete, but he plays angry, and he understands how to use the biomechanics of his body to get underneath blocks, to attack their bodies. He does a really nice job of understanding the weaknesses of each blocker and then working hard to exploit them. So 2 7th round picks that I thought the Vikings, that's a big reason why the Vikings were number 4 on my list. Not just, it's great they had so many draft picks, but it's how they used them that really ultimately put them at number 4 for me.
Really glad you brought up Kyle Hinton. Ranked in your top 10 centers, number 9 in the Beast, the draft guide. Again, what a great deep dive you can do. Download the Beast. It's not too late. Check out the deep dive and great work Dane has done on Kyle Hinton. And the Vikings actually came out in their post-draft presser and said exactly what you mentioned. They will be moving him to center. He'll get to learn behind Garrett Bradbury. Some good depth there as well. Just play devil's advocate for me. Everybody is stomping on the Green Bay Packers in their draft, and I get it. 1 game away from the Super Bowl. They draft a replacement for Aaron Rodgers with their first pick, and not much else. But I'm just waiting for somebody to come on the show and play devil's advocate and tell me why maybe we look back on these moves and say maybe it's not as bad as the knee-jerk reaction.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see both sides. I understand that this is a team ready to win now. Rodgers has a 2 to 3 year window here that you're trying to win. You made it to the NFC title game. Now it's try to, okay, what can we do to get you over the hump? And instead they went with the future. And I get those that are upset, and I get those that are okay with it, because in 2005, I'm sure there were plenty of fans that didn't like drafting Aaron Rodgers because they thought, okay, well, we've got Brett Favre. We've got a chance here to go for it. Why aren't we getting him more help? And so, it's something that we're not going to know this year. We're not going to know next year. This is a long-term play in terms of fully understanding if it's going to play out or not. And Jordan Love, to me, was a top 25 talent in this class. And so to get him a 26, I mean, I think you're getting good value on a quarterback like that, has all the talent in the world. And if they're able to go, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, I mean, that might span 4 decades by the time it's all said and done. So, if it works according to plan, then, and I get it. They might only have 2 Super Bowl wins up to this point, So I get that maybe the winning, but it's still your job as a general manager is to be a contender every single year, and you have to build the roster with a forward-thinking approach to do that. And if you have a quarterback that you really believe in fall to you like that, then I get it. I totally get it. But, like I said, I also understand why some Packers fans would not be happy with that selection. And, I didn't love some of what they did on day 2 with A.J. Dillon and Josiah DeGuara, 2 good players. I just thought second and third rounds were a little early for those guys. Thought they could have gone in some other directions. But, nonetheless, here we are. And, it would have been nice to maybe see them go after a receiver. It's arguably the greatest receiver draft we've seen in the last 30 years, and they didn't draft a single one, which was really, really surprising. So I think that's something that they deserve some criticism for that.
Dan, I'd be remiss if I didn't just pick your brain quick about the 2021 NFL class. You already got your new mock draft. Go check it out up on theathletic.com right now. Trevor Lawrence, clearly the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 overall pick, but if I came back from the future, I told you he's not the first pick. Who would be next in line for you? Who do you think is going to be pushing Trevor Lawrence for that number 1 pick?
I have to say Justin Fields from Ohio State. I mean, this is a guy that we watched him last year, and he was every bit as good until that interception that sealed the game for Clemson in the final few minutes of that semifinal game in the playoffs. I mean, he's smart. The movement skills are outstanding. He's tough as nails. And last year was his first year he really ever played college football. I mean, he was first year as a starter. So I'm eager to see what he can do as a junior. Ohio State, they lose a lot on the offensive line. They lose their top running back. They lose a few receivers. But they still got Chris Olave coming back, who was also in this first-round mock. They've got Garrett Wilson, the other really talented receiver. And they've got some other guys coming in. So we know Ohio State, they reload. They don't rebuild. Fields will have plenty of talent around him. Eager to see what he can do as a junior, and it would not shock me at all if a team prefers Fields over Lawrence. But hopefully we have a season to allow that to play out and see where we go from here.
Okay, one more. Just give us a name that you think people are sleeping on a little bit. He could wind up in the first round. Somebody to hone in on for that college football season. Maybe people are sleeping on him just a little bit.
It's so hard to say because the narratives haven't been set yet for next year, so it's hard to say who they might be sleeping on. I mean, I think the Pac-12's got a couple DBs that I think maybe don't get a ton of love. Safety from Oregon, Holland, is a really good player. I mean, you watch Oregon's defense, and all you see is him making plays after play after play, both against the run and the pass. There was some talk that maybe even get some snaps on offense. Elijah Molden from Washington, keeping the Huskies, the NFL cornerback pipeline alive. He got his hands on a lot of footballs last year. And then USC safety, Hufanga, number 15. I mean, you don't even need to know his number. Just watch the ball, and he's going to be somewhere close there. So the Pac-12's got a couple really interesting defenders, defensive backs, who I think we're going to be talking a lot about throughout the process.
Go download The Beast, best draft guide on the market, free with your Athletic subscription to get the best in-depth analysis on every one of your team's picks. You will not regret it. Follow him on Twitter, @DP Brugler. Dane, you're literally one of the best in the biz, man. No one will argue. Anybody works harder. You're honing your craft, and someone who works in the draft industry as well. It's always a pleasure to watch you and the content you produce. Honor to get you on the Draft Rap podcast. I know it won't be long until you're grinding that 2021 draft class, so hopefully we can get you on again soon, all right?
Anytime. I appreciate the kind words, Luke, and I'm blessed I get to do this for a living, so I'm going to keep working hard at it to make sure I can do it another year, so I appreciate that.
Okay, go get that blueprint ready for that house. Get that man cave ready to roll, all right?
It's a film room cave. That's
There it is. I love it. All right, Dane. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Anytime. Take care.
Thanks a lot. There it is, the 2020 NFL Draft. In the books, another great recap from one of my all-time favorites, Dane Brugler. Be sure to check back for plenty more draft coverage on zonecoverage.com and the Zone Coverage Podcast Network every week leading up into the 2020 NFL season. For the Draft Wrap Podcast, I am your host, Luke Inman, on Twitter at Luke_Spinman NFL. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and for now, signing out.
Hi, hello, and welcome back to the 1983 National Football League Draft.
And with the first round pick,
John Elway, Jim Kelly,
Welcome back to the
draft,
and with the first round pick,
Dan Marino and Brugler,
NFL draft, and with the first round pick,
Deion Sanders,
I was kind of scared. I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would have asked for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
welcome back to the
NFL draft,
good young players with the transfer back.
year in and year out.
welcome back to the
Draft,
Wide receivers, running back,
tackle, quarterback, every year in the draft. There has been a trade. Ricky Williams,
Don Dolphin. On a shady Sunday.
welcome back to the
draft, defensive line,
wide receiver, running back,
Tackle, quarterback.
that's all I'll get into that.
Prime time looks like you're wearing your signing bonus.
No more sales.
welcome back to the
NFL draft, and with the first round pick,
Eric Dickerson,
Reggie Bush,
welcome back to the
draft,
and with the
Prime time.
pick, Keyshawn Johnson,
are we ready?
and with the first round pick, Randy Moss,
I'm the pick now, I'm a Viking now.
and with the first round pick,